So I want to look at these three flint objects which come from actually quite different periods of time and different parts of the world. The first one, is turd-like piece, is a flint from Egypt, and from Paleolithic, prehistoric Egypt, about 60,000 to 100,000 years ago, or even more. I mean, the dating on these is very unsure because these tools don't change much over time. It's a very simply knapped flint, and it's colored brown partly through the interaction with its environment. So that's not necessarily the color of the flint itself, but partly just the sort of rock varnish that's accumulated over the millennia. But it would be, despite its simple, rather crude making, it would have been an effective cutting and scraping tool. This, slightly more sophisticated in form in terms of it has this nice leaf shape, is related to this. It's equally old, another, at least 100,000 years old, and it's from Libya. And one thing I like about it, as well as the yellow color, is the surface has a sort of sheen to it, which is the product of being polished by the sand. It was on the floor of the desert, and the sand was blowing on it and sort of gave it this sort of soft polish. The back, which was lying on the ground, is much more matte, as you can sort of see here. But it makes for a very interesting object. This object is Aztec, somewhere from 1350 to 1521 AD. Very sophisticated in its making and its form. And this culture, the Mayans and the Aztecs never developed metal tools, so we consider them Stone Age, despite their incredible sophistication in terms of language and, or social organization and temples and everything about them. But one thing about these two very early things, there's some of the few objects, i.e. these stone tools, are some of the few things that give us a direct contact with this incredibly long period of human existence, the Paleolithic period, which exists, humans evolved maybe 250,000 years ago, somewhere around there. And they've been making tools for at least that long, and the tools don't change dramatically. But we're beginning to revise our thinking about early human existence. Some of the later scholars are beginning to consider the agricultural revolution something of a fraud, because the people of the hunter-gatherer periods turn out to have been healthier. They were taller, they show less signs of disease in their skeletons, whereas once people started to settle into cities, they developed more disease, they were malnourished because they were dependent upon one or two plant species. I mean, it's just sort of interesting to have this sort of revisionist history. And so it's really so great to have these reminders of the length of human existence and how much we still have yet to learn.